Evening Bahamas coming up tonight on our news.
The F&M chairman warns the opposition leader about his promise of payback in that letter to the Prime Minister.
Well, Senator Fred Mitchell calls on this current administration to stay out of former ministers' arrests.
Loretta Butler Turner sounds off on the Menace administration.
The State Minister for Legal Affairs responds to that letter that was recently written by the leader of the PLP.
Is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Vonnie Tude. Topping news tonight, Free National Movement Chairman Sidney Collie hit back at Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Davis today, following Davis's letter to the Prime Minister alleging abuses of power in relation to the arrest of former parliamentarians and promising payback. Kyle Joaquin reports.
Collie is advising the opposition leader to tread lightly. He said Davis appears to be starting something he's certain he doesn't want the F&M to finish. In his leaked letter to Prime Minister Menace last week, the opposition leader called the recent arrests of former PLP MPs an abuse of power and had no shortage of words in promising a payback. Davis wrote, "Moreover, where such abuses of power occur, the offending parties, be they police officers or politicians, need to understand that there will come a day of reckoning for them as well. What goes around comes around." The letter was dated July 18th after police revealed that former BAIC chairman Dion Smith was found to have done no wrong in the probe at the corporation, and after former Environment Minister Kenred Dorset was arraigned on bribery charges. Davis's letter also came just before former Public Hospitals Authority Chairman Frank Smith was arraigned on bribery charges as well. But Davis continued, and let me hasten to add that that is not a threat. It is instead an immutable law of the moral universe, one that is sometimes expressed in these words: when you set out to dig a grave for your enemy, dig two. However, his words aren't sitting well with Free National Movement Chairman Sidney Collie, who said he's had a slew of information to release since before the May 10th general election.
So just to let Mr. Davis and the rest of them know that my garbage bin is still full. And if you push me, apart from what the government is doing, I will release some of what I have. But we don't go that way.
Prime Minister Menace has repeatedly said his government isn't on a political witch hunt and that he will let the law take its course. But Collie says, as a lawyer, Davis should have known better.
If you, Mr. Davis, advocate going down that road, you are advocating a vicious cycle.
And that cycle of payback, he said, will not be healthy for the future of the Bahamas. Collie said over the last 5 years, F&M supporters throughout the Bahamas have suffered by the hands of the Christie administration.
So when you go public and threaten reprisals or payback, remember you have left a graveyard of injured, severely injured and disgruntled Bahamians all across this country.
Davis concluded the letter stating that he hopes Menace will accept his invitation to meet as soon as possible. CC'd in the letter were Attorney General Carl Bethel and National Security Minister Marvin Dames. Collie gave this bit of advice.
It's not a good idea to go down the road you or your chairman plan to go down. It's better that you retool, you re-engineer, and you build your party for the next time around.
For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Despite the F&M chairman's warning to the PLP, Senator Fred Mitchell backed up Philip Davis's comments today, telling our news the current administration should be careful when making certain comments. April Sands has that angle.
Well, after the statement released by PLP leader Philip Brave Davis, Senator Fred Mitchell co-signs matters, stating that the issue of these former ministers' arrests should be kept out of political conversation and instead solely a matter for police investigations.
The only people who've been commenting on this are politicians. One is the Minister of Health, who says, oh, there's more to come, get ready. And then you have the Minister of National Security, who seems to be saying that the cabinet sat and decided, well, it's not going to be a commission of inquiry. We're going to use the police to go after former politicians. That's the way it comes off, and that's what raises the suspicion.
The former PLP minister calls it nothing but political vengeance, claiming if the accusations of criminal offenses were genuine with no political contamination, then there would be no need for cabinet ministers to speak.
There are no laws in this country about campaign donations. No laws about campaign donations. And so long as there are no laws about campaign donations, one has to be very careful how you frame criminal actions when allegations of the kind that we have heard about have been advanced. So that's number one. Number two is you have to be careful that when you are advancing these positions, you don't prejudice the general atmosphere by all of the commentary which is being made about it. So that, for example, if cases have to go to a jury, you end up with a poisoned jury pool. And the question then arises whether anybody can get a fair trial in these situations. And so that is, again, another aspect which has to be very carefully guarded and watched.
Mitchell also responded to threats by FNM Chairman Sidney Collie, who said PLP leader Philip Davis should not push him because his political garbage can is full of files on former PLP ministers. Mitchell says Collie's comments only prove his point that the FNM is on a political witch hunt.
Threats about what you have in your garbage can and what you don't have in your garbage can, those are of no import. It's childish, it's silly, it's inadvisable. What we want the Free National Movement to do is to get to work, trying to build this country, to put people to work, to stop looking after special interests and to look after the ordinary people of the country. Because given the scale of the popular vote in the last general election, some of the people who are, and I would say most of the people, who have been adversely affected by these initial policies of the Free National Movement must have voted for them. And they're ending up hurting those very people.
Reporting for our news, I'm April Sands.
Just months into the Minnis administration's term, former opposition leader Loretta Butler Turner says she has already noticed careless and amateur mistakes. The former Long Island MP says she's not nitpicking, but simply observing. She spoke with our Giorgio Bain.
Former Long Island MP Loretta Butler Turner says the Minnis administration made some hefty promises on the campaign trail, and just months in, it seems as though those promises are already falling by the wayside. Butler Turner says she finds it disconcerting that Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis is missing self-imposed deadlines, which is inexcusable considering that he has no ministerial portfolio to distract him.
The newly appointed press secretary to the Prime Minister indicated during the budget debate that we would have had a national address from the Prime Minister by the second week of July. That time has come and gone. The Bahamas waits. Bahamians are waiting with bated breath to hear from the new Prime Minister with regards to the way forward. So from that perspective, he's missed a self-imposed deadline.
According to Butler Turner, despite having a cabinet that consists of several new faces, there are also several experienced ministers at the table, which leads her to question why there are so many amateur mistakes being made.
The tabloid today indicates that the now junior minister with responsibility for NIB and public service, I might add, in the office of the Prime Minister is now going to be a full-fledged minister to allow the Prime Minister to carry out further duties. Two contradictions here. One, is that an official announcement that I read in the press? If it isn't, then, you know, maybe they can say I'm wrong for using that. But you cannot have a junior minister in the office of the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister not be the portfolio minister. So he obviously either misspoke or did not get it right. These are the amateur mistakes that I have picked up on.
Butler Turner, who became opposition leader last year after she and 6 other FNM MPs had Minnis ousted from that post, says members of the Minnis cabinet need to get on one page. She also referred to several revelations made during the recent budget debate.
We've had misspeaks by various cabinet ministers where several ministers have come out and said there has been malfeasance, misfeasance of funds, of, you know, behavior within their ministry. And the very next day, you have the Attorney General, no less, the lead legal counsel to the government, to the Prime Minister, stating that there was nothing. Now, subsequent to that, we've seen things happening. But once again, we have not heard any direct speak from the Prime Minister who said that his job is going to be to focus primarily on policy decisions.
Reporting for our news, I'm Georgia Bain.
Minister of State for Legal Affairs Ellsworth Johnson is defending the Minister administration's anti-corruption agenda, insisting it takes courage to carry out their plans. Jasmine Brown reports.
The state minister cautioned that the response to those recent arrests should not be an emotional one, as he insists the Minister administration is just doing its job. In that letter, Davis alleged the arrests of former parliamentarians was an abuse by the Minister administration. Davis also warned that where such abuses occur, the offending parties need to understand there will come a day of reckoning, as the PLP leader insisted what goes around comes around. Johnson says while he had not seen the letter, he's baffled by Davis' claims, as Johnson says the AG's office will act responsibly.
I don't know that I should dignify that with a response. There are ways that the law allows us to settle differences. And I would urge everybody to be just cautious. This government, and most certainly the Attorney General's office, that is independent, is about transparency and accountability. And there are any measures or number of legislation that you would see coming before Parliament in the near future, which will deal with that same concept.
Johnson's comments came on the sidelines of the Caribbean Association of Law Libraries' annual general meeting at the Malia Nassau Beach Resort on Monday morning. He is the latest member of the Minister cabinet to speak on the matter. The F&M government has been accused of going on a witch hunt, a claim officials have denied. Johnson says the Minister administration is not trying to attack anyone, as he promised anti-corruption legislation is on the way.
And so it's not about us. This song, some of us, I think, are too selfish. And this process is not about CV. It's about service. This country is being hit, and it's being hit hard. And it requires the intestinal fortitude, the strength and courage for us to get about the business of the Bahamas. And that is the acid test. That is the acid test, and we have to do that.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
In other news, the full list of persons selected to serve on over 100 government boards, committees, and advisory councils has been completed and is now before Cabinet, according to F&M Chairman Sidney Collie.
As I understand it, the boards have been fully constituted, and it's now in the office of the Prime Minister. So I suspect they'll be published shortly in the Gazette.
The Prime Minister has said appointees will be a mixture of young Bahamians and experienced professionals. Collie said government will also create new boards.
Approximately 100, about 2 or 3 boards added to the 108. So it's between 110 and 112. Boards, committees, and advisory councils. It's quite a lot of them. And by law, they have to be published in the Gazette.
Still to come on our news, a civic group calls for government to take a second look at freedom of information. So